Hey everybody, welcome to the MGF Podcast. This is the show with a temporary name where we talk movies, shows, games, Lego, and whatever else. And joining me is Tate.
So, guys, I hope everybody's having a great Sunday.
This is episode 19, by the way. And
We're doing a
happy
good show.
Sunday, everyone. We've got a pretty good set of things to cover today, but namely, there has been a little bit of progress in the way of coming up with a name for the show. We think because our opinions are usually so unpopular,
and they will be in this showcase. This video is going to be super divisive. I have a feeling not many people are going to like this one. I mean, it's going to be bad.
Yeah, just to preface this whole podcast, I mean, we're going to have a little bit more fun leading up to the Endgame segment today, but I love Endgame. Tate's a little more lukewarm on it. But we're going to be revisiting it later on in the show toward the end, so we have as much time to talk about it as possible. But there are just things that now that I've seen the movie 9.5 times, because I mean I kind of consider I just saw it like kind of half of a time just a couple days ago when I was listening to the director's commentary while working on Cap and Iron Man.
MGF be like, let me watch this movie 38 times and still
we decided we're gonna take the latter half of this podcast to kind of air some grievances with Endgame and things that we think were kind of lazy that really could have been avoided, things that we kind of want to expand a bit more on, and it's just kind of like a extension of our original spoiler talk for Endgame back in April. But
there's a lot of ideas from that, like a lot of nitpicks. A lot of nitpicks that we initially had with Endgame have been heightened greatly, I would say.
They've been festering.
They've not only have they been festering, but we have director commentary, we have commentary by the writers. We are hearing these things because of the featurettes, and they're kind of making these ideas that we have even more hostile in a way because of the fact that they're completely combating things that should have been avoided or things that should have been explained. It makes me appreciate Infinity War and its featurettes a lot more. But anyway, like Ross said, we will talk about that towards the end.
Yeah, so again, suffice it to say, we're definitely going to be dipping into our unpopular opinions with the Endgame revisiting later.
Yeah.
And as far as the Endgame showcases go, I did just post a vlog on MGF Extra and a pretty big update to my Patreon on everything I've been working on the last couple of weeks. And the first showcase is coming. I missed that end of July mark that I was gunning for. I don't know why, Tate. I always place unrealistic expectations on myself as to when I can finish figures in a showcase. And then I'm like, oh, wait, this is actually going to take an entire day to paint the back of this torso or an entire day to paint the rest of these legs. You know, it's just, man. Either way, the first showcase is coming. I have all the skits written. I have a general idea of how I want the video to look, and it is happening. I think there's going to be like 6 skits or something ridiculous. I'm really going all in on those for the Endgame showcases to really make the most out of it, because Endgame is just so memeable, man. I mean, there are so many jokes and so many like different possibilities as far as making sketches like that. So I've been really going all in on that. It's going to be a great first video, and then we're moving on to Black Widow and Hawkeye once that's done. I've been changing up some plans for Thanos that I mentioned in that vlog. Not everybody's going to agree with, but I'm really going to enjoy that figure by the time it's done. Tate, you already know what I'm talking about. And we'll be getting started on Smart Hulk pretty soon after Black Widow and Ronin 2. So those are the updates on the Endgame show.
The thing that's divisive about Thanos is that I'm actually sculpting it out of Play-Doh. I just want to... You
gave it away.
I'm sorry. I had to.
You gave it away. You gave it away.
Anyway, guys, I have to finish. If you've been following along with the podcast, we'll probably make Play-Doh Thanos merch because we've been talking about this for literal months now. But I have to finish that by the time Ross finishes his. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, man.
But anyway, to all of our friends, companions, acquaintances, whatnot that are in Virginia right now at Brick Fair, we hope you guys are having a great time. Unfortunately, Ross and I could not make it this year.
Yeah, today is the last day of Brick Fair Virginia 2019. And to those of you who haven't been following along on the channel and, you know, really haven't caught the Brick Fair videos either on my main channel or those vlogs on MGF Extra whenever I would cover Brick Fair, I've been going to Brick Fair Virginia since I was a kid in 2010 when I was a little chubby 10-year-old Ross. And The amount of fun times and memories that have been created going to Brick Fair 8 straight years in a row. I mean it makes up a large portion of my life that's just so memorable, so valuable to my life. And this year though, as much as I love those guys, as much as it is amazing to go to a place and have all these amazing mocks in the background while you and the boys have a fun time, it got repetitive. It got to a point where I was going every year, seeing all the same people, seeing the exact same event, and we kind of exhausted all the things to do around the event, outside the event, and I didn't really like the feeling of it anymore, in the sense that we were getting there. It was like, wow, it feels like we were just here. And then that was kind of becoming more of a curse than a blessing, if that makes sense. And this is such like a first world problem, but it's just basically like the deeper reason as to why I decided this year didn't really feel right. I needed the year off. I was saying I wasn't going to go last year at Brick Fair 2018. But then I started to reconsider going this year, and came very close to going, as a matter of fact. Tait and I were going to split the room because, Tait decided that, hey, he was going to go to Brick Fair this year. First time hitting a Lego con on the East Coast for him. But then that fell through, thanks United Airlines.
Yeah, you want to hear something? Okay, so we have, I believe it was United, I'm pretty damn sure it was, but I had the flight all figured out. $200 there, $250 back, $450, that's not bad, right? We we're getting close to it. It's what, a month ago, 2 months ago? I think it was in June.
It was a month ago, yeah.
Was it a month ago? I don't remember. Dang.
Maybe just under a month ago, yeah.
But yeah, something like that. I get an email and they say, hey, the flight's not happening. I said, I was kind of questioning it. I was like, what do you mean? Right? And they're like, oh, there was an issue. Apparently, I scheduled wrong. It was my fault, right? Of course it's my fault.
Of course it was your fault,
Of course it is. So I start looking at it, and I'm like, dude, at least I didn't get dragged off the plane. I go to book a new flight, $600 one way. I'm sorry, I can't spend $1,200-$1,300 to go to a Lego con, especially if I'm not bringing my game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's absurd, because it's like usually the story when it comes to airlines is like, we overbooked, or it was your fault. You bought a plane ticket. How is that your fault? That's hilarious to me.
Yeah, right.
What's even more hilarious to me, is how they just didn't just throw you on another flight. I mean, that's absurd, and it makes me really wary of flying United. I've always flown United, like last 2 times I've traveled on, via plane in the last couple of years. But dude, now I'm really wary about using United going forward. I mean, the stories coming out of United are just increasingly getting worse and worse. And now, I mean, we didn't attend Brick Fair this year because of it. Because I mean, that was going to be the one reason I was going to go, because it was going to be great. Because it was going to be, it's going to be able to meet Tait in person for the first time, and we're going to really change things up at Brick Fair by having him there instead. And yeah, man. And then when this all happened, I was like, I think I'll just try for next year. If not 2021, I'll return to Brick Fair. It is what it is.
Yeah, the thing that I really, really don't understand is they were pretty much saying that I booked a flight that wasn't real. And that essentially means that they put a flight on their website that wasn't happening. So they had an administrative error, and it was my fault. But anyway, yeah, guys, I mean, I was looking forward to it. I was gonna bring, I don't know if you guys know, I'm a martial artist, I'm a boxer. And, I was gonna bring boxing equipment with me and have the customizers have a little battle royale Fortnite style. Last one standing wins.
Oh man,
we're gonna do duos. I would drop in with MGF and we'd kick ass.
They're super freaking strict at the Dallas Expo Center. That we tried to have a lightsaber fight out in the parking lot, like 2016, I think, and. Man, this lady came out and just shut us down after like 25 minutes, but it was fun while it lasted.
I would have Batista bombed her, dude, 100%. I would have been in the moment. I would have been chugging protein shakes and just Batista bombed her right there on the spot.
But yeah, the Brick Fair is, even though the convention itself has never changed and it's gotten old, and seeing mocks in person doesn't have the same magic as it used to. The magic of being able to see everybody, all your close friends in person that one time every year is always an opportunity that, is amazing, but at the same time, I decided after 8 straight years of going, we needed a break. And also because financially this year is just like, maybe let's not do that. Right. But either way, man, yeah, Brick Fair, next year. Gonna try for it. It's just oh shit.
Star Wars Celebration.
I just dropped something.
It's like the same. Is it like a week from?
No, so Brick Fair, Virginia is always the first week of August, and next year Star Wars Celebration Anaheim is at the end of August. So,
gotcha. So 2 weeks in between.
Yeah, there's like a couple weeks in between.
Yeah, but we're hitting Disneyland, we're hitting Lightsaber Creation, we're hitting Droid Factory,
yes,
and the convention. I mean, guys. For context, I'm saving up to buy property, and I'm putting additional money aside for this Anaheim extravaganza next year. Because, I mean, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about it, dude. I mean, we could easily spend a couple $1,000s each if we're going to go all out.
Yeah, we got to be really conservative. I don't even know if I'm going to do the lightsaber creation thing. I might just film, like, either you or Eric or somebody else doing it.
Absolutely doing it. Let me just say that. I'm gonna do like a light cosplay thing. I'm going to get a Corellian stripe. I'm going to get the Corellian stripe pants, and I'm going to get a dope-ass, like, Galactic Republic leather jacket that I found online. I'm going all out for this, man. I'm going all out.
Dude, and everything there is marked up. I mean, as you can imagine. But for instance, a good friend of mine, Corey, he just got into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Orlando early. And he was like, hey, you want me to pick anything up? And I was like, there is a Star Wars Black Series exclusive 3-pack that has Hondo Ohnaka. And if you guys don't know what the Star Wars Black Series is, it's the lineup of 6-inch figures I've been collecting since it began. And I mean, it's the biggest part of my collection. You see them all over the walls in my vlogs. I've got most of them sealed. Point is, Hondo from the Clone Wars was made into that 6-inch form, and they put him in a 3-pack. And dude, that 3-pack is like $74.
Jeez, aren't most of them like $10 each for the Black Series?
20. Okay. But that's still a $15 markup for Galaxy's Edge. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, guys, no, I can assure you Galaxy's Edge next year is gonna hurt bad.
Yeah, man.
And then the convention, I mean, what happens there, We see some real nice, figures there and whatnot. I mean, shoot.
And so that's exactly why we may not be attending Brick Fair next year either, because again, as much as we love Brick Fair, if we can link up with some of the guys, at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim and then Star Wars Land, that's really more preferable at this point in our lives than Brick Fair.
Anaheim 2020 sold out within like 5. What was it like the first hour? It sold out. And
first hour, all the main tickets were gone for the full event.
Yeah, so there's that. There's the fact that it's the year after season 7, the year after Return of Sky. Is it called Rise of Skywalker? My bad. Which we need to talk about. We need to talk about Rise of Skywalker. We don't have that on our topics list, but there's something we need to talk about.
Yeah, we can.
But there's just a lot of stuff happening the year before 2020. So 2020 Star Wars Convention will be nuts, dude. Think about all the Mandalorian stuff we'll see, all of the Clone Wars stuff we'll see. I mean, it'll be
I think the Clone Wars is definitely going to be out before then.
Oh, I know it's going to be out, but we're going to see behind the scenes is what I'm thinking. We're going to see special features. We're going to see, because the Clone Wars this is the year of the Clone Wars, right? We're going to see the voice cast most likely, dude. I mean, I know they were there this year, but
we might I don't think we will.
You don't think we will?
Shit on your dreams, really? Dude. No, because getting the full panel together after the fact, after the season's already up, considering that season 7 could very well be the last season. They have yet to announce officially if this is really just going to be it. But no, I mean, even Matt Lanter said to Ashley on stage during that panel in Chicago, this may be the last time we do this. And I think that he could be right.
Oh, dude, I'm thinking to drive up hype from, after the fact, after this season, I think it's pretty...
Well, I mean, if they have a panel and they're going to announce that the series is going to continue for another couple seasons, then yeah.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't happen, I don't see the cast coming together to further promote it way after the fact. But...
I don't know, dude. I think it'll be pretty damn good.
What could happen at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim next year is anyone's guess. I mean, they could be announcing the next trilogy. I mean, who knows what the state of Star Wars is going to look like a full year from now? It could be.
We're going to get free DLC for what's it called? The game coming out in November.
Dude, speaking of free DLC, it's August. They're going to be coming up with the announcements for Battlefront 2 pretty soon.
Oh,
And
ooh.
man, we're closing in, Tate, on whether or not Ahsoka and Ventress are being added to the game. I want to know for sure.
I'm voting no. I don't think it'll happen because it's just too
Ugh.
obvious and too good. But if it
Dude,
does,
don't shit on my dreams.
no, if it does happen though, that'll be pretty dope.
I think what they're definitely going to do is some Rise of Skywalker stuff in December, and they could just announce that and leave it there, and that'll be the end of Battlefront 2's cycle.
Sad. Oh, another desert planet. They're gonna introduce that.
No.
There's another desert map. At least Mos Eisley Cantina's in the game. You know what I mean? Instead of just Tatooine.
I don't even know if we should talk about that right now.
Jeez. All right. Well, let's move on, shall we? Before we get too worked up. The 9th film by Quentin Tarantino has come out. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I have not seen it yet. I do want to see it.
Yeah. So this was my first Quentin Tarantino movie.
Which is a shame. That's a crying shame. I heard this movie's pretty damn shallow from not only you, Ross, but from other people. And dude, you really need to go back and watch a lot of what he has. I mean, dude, it's incredible.
I mean, like I'm familiar with Pulp Fiction, Django Unchained, The Hateful Eight, all those movies,
Glorious
the Kill Bill movies, Glorious Bastards. You know, I've heard those names, you know, for the last 10 years, but never actually watched any of them. And
shame. Hateful Eight is RDR the movie. I'll tell you that now. Django Unchained is also RDR the movie. I mean, dude, oh my gosh, they're the best westerns ever made, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely need to catch up on his films. I mean, that's usually why a lot of people accuse me of not being, if informed on film and movies. And whenever I come out and say Revenge of the Sith is my favorite movie of all time, then people are quick to say, you don't understand anything about film, and even quicker to say that when they realize I haven't actually watched any of Quentin Tarantino's movies. But
to judge somebody,
I could not care less.
To judge somebody based off of the movies they've watched, I think is absurd. Because you can have a refined view on film if you've only watched B movies. Some of the most informed filmographers I've met are B movie fans, right? That is absurd. But I do think that you're misinformed on movies because you want explosions in every single dramatic scene.
No, you're just placing that stereotype on me. I just think there needs to be more action where it's warranted. We'll talk about this with Endgame a bit more, but they're just in Endgame. The writers and the directors, they prioritize the smaller, intimate, closer moments over what I think could have been some really great, well-placed, large stakes action. Because it's the end of the Infinity Saga, everything building to this, and instead they opted for mostly quieter moments before the final battle.
Hey man,
anyway, we'll get to that. Tate hates action overall and wishes explosions never even came into existence.
Hey, MGF stands for Michael Bay Great Films. I can confirm that.
Oh man, I think Infinity War had the perfect balance. So you can shut up. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Listen, man, I was familiar with Quentin Tarantino's style before going in. I knew what I was in for. I knew he doesn't follow any basic structure really. And I knew that he's very stylistic and it's just kind of an experience more than anything. So knowing that going in, I remember I was just like totally sold on the first trailer. I mean, when they first posted that, the first trailer for this movie many, many months ago, I was like, that looks like fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing that in July. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie. You've got even Al Pacino in this. You've got a little bit of Kurt Russell who was in there for one scene. It's basically the best way I can describe it is, and I said this to you, Tate, it's just like Quentin Tarantino designs 1969 around these two fictional, almost stereotypical like characters, and you were just dropped into 1969 for 2 hours and 39 minutes. That's it.
That's how Pulp Fiction was as well, though. But it did have the underlying story. Yeah,
I mean, and there is an underlying story. Of course, what they've been advertising that, the main character DiCaprio plays is an actor, fictional actor by the name of Rick Dalton, who has been playing, he's been the action hero, he's been playing the westerns, always been the hero or the villain in various movies, and that, the culture is changing and he's worried that it's going to leave him behind, and that the type of actor he is not really going to be as desired moving forward. And So yeah, the whole movie is him like wrangling with that, and of course you just get a phenomenal performance from Leonardo DiCaprio the whole way through. I mean, at no point did I not fully believe him. He's Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't have to tell anyone. Now Brad Pitt's character, his stunt double Cliff Booth, the entire movie, he's just the cool guy the whole way through.
That's what Brad Pitt is in real life, though. So
yeah, man, but that's it. It is just like the guy's a walking stereotype, and it's entertaining. It was just he's kind of cartoony in that way, but he's just so damn cool that who cares? He's great. He's amazing. And the two of them, I mean, they're awesome together the whole way through. I mean, there are some incredible moments throughout this movie. I mean, one featuring a little girl. I think they released it online when he's sitting on a bench talking to her, and she's like 8 years old, and then she's like this incredibly, like well-educated and informed little actress. And I mean, he just has these great moments where he's doubting himself, where he's doing all kinds of drugs. Of course, he's drunk most of the time. And he's wrangling with all these emotions the whole way through. And Cliff Booth, Brad Pitt's character is just trying to kind of keep him together, driving him around. He's more of his assistant now. He hasn't really been doing a lot of stunts for him. And and of course, in this movie, they also try to portray the Manson murders, because Margot Robbie is in there.
Pre-Manson murders, right? I mean,
pre-Manson murders. Yeah, it's not actually in the movie. Like that horrific event is not actually portrayed in this movie.
And I think that's good that he respected that enough to not include it, because there's been a Manson mania going on in Hollywood for the past like 5 years or so, where there's been a lot of Charles Manson TV shows and movies, and it's weird to me, man. I mean, that did not happen very long ago. You know what I mean? It's kind of still a bit relevant. I mean, Charles Manson's still alive, rotting in prison, so kind of rough to be putting that in a big.
He died 2 years ago.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear about that. Good.
Yeah. No, thank God. But. Yeah, they don't portray that in the movie. I mean, they kind of allude to it a little bit, throughout. But speaking of Sharon Tate, Margot Robbie was brought in to play her, and she does really well. Apparently, even Sharon Tate's sister thought so, which is really great.
Yeah, dude.
And she is great in this movie. But what I thought, and this really just kind of goes back to my first point about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that it's really just the experience of being in 1969 Hollywood. Because I don't really know if this qualifies as a spoiler, but she's not connected to the story. She's not connected to the characters. She doesn't even meet the characters. I mean, she is like Margot Robbie's portrayal as Sharon Tate and her inclusion in the movie. It is just one big subplot. Whenever they cut away from Leo or Brad Pitt, you go back to her, and it's just whatever Sharon Tate is doing in that moment. And I was fine with that. I thought it worked. It was just
that's how Pulp Fiction is, dude. And
man, and I'm just not used to it. So that's just me.
Yeah. Russ,
but she was great.
Oh, you gotta watch Inglourious Bastards. You gotta watch Reservoir Dogs. You gotta watch all.
I gotta watch a lot of things, man. I think I need to figure out an order in which I need to watch those things first, and then
I would
start
say,
to go through them.
Honestly, dude, prioritize when it comes to Tarantino movies. I'd say prioritize Inglourious Bastards. I mean, that is when cinematography and background details are at their absolute peak.
What I certainly noticed about Tarantino, I mean, apparently this goes through in every movie, not just this one, but I mean, the passion that is inserted is nuts. I mean, the attention to detail in the way that it's shot and the entire environment. I mean, it is just masterful.
Dude, let me tell you.
It's phenomenal.
Let me tell you. So in Inglourious Bastards, I'm going to keep bringing this movie up because I think it's an absolute masterpiece. But there's this scene. It's called the Three Glasses scene. And I don't really want to spoil it, but for anybody watching who is a young filmographer, somebody who cares about these kind of things, the Three Glasses scene in Inglourious Bastards shows how much love and respect the team going into these movies puts into what they're creating. Ross, I'm not going to spoil the scene because it is so. I mean, it is tense, it is invigorating, and it's so subtle. But I mean, just the attention to detail, dude, it is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, what's even
subtle.
shocking is he only got 90 million. I think was the budget for this movie. I could be mistaken.
Yeah, and like 50 of that is going to the actors. Is like the most incredible part of it all.
Yeah, I mean, like what really set it in stone for me was like when they go down Hollywood Boulevard. I mean, there was no CG there, and I was just like, oh my god, you know, it is incredible. It was really well done. It's not the type of movie that's gonna, you know, it's not.
Change
I don't
cinema.
think I want to. No, I don't want to go back and see it again before it's out of theaters. Like I'll be perfectly fine waiting until the end of the year to see this again. But what I think is really good is like it's you don't have to be paying that much attention the whole way through the movie. And when I say that, like because it is just an immersive experience of being dropped into 1969 Hollywood for 2.5 hours, you can watch it almost like kind of halfway absentmindedly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot to take in, but also it's a very chill movie. And I mean, because it was such a unique experience for me watching it, this is not like a movie that I would apply a rating to. I don't even think that's fair for a movie like this. It's just, it's very different. It's very different, and it's
Ross, Tarantino movies mean very different things to different people. For pretentious dickheads like me, they mean a lot.
Yeah,
right? Because you go through, you pick apart every scene. You don't go to it like I was saying with my John Wick review. I analyze most movies because I'm a dickhead, and I did not go into John Wick analyzing a movie. But when I go see this movie, I will be picking apart every scene and looking for the nuances, looking for the intricate detail placed throughout it. I mean, I've seen Django Unchained like 10 times, and I can still learn something from each scene. The background details are incredible. But yeah, I've heard this movie compared to the likes of LA Confidential, which LA Confidential is probably one of the greatest detective movies of all time. I mean, that movie is incredible. So, I mean, if that's the case, if this just has a weaker story than LA Confidential, dude, I mean, I'm excited.
Hell yeah, dude. I'll have to check that movie out. But that's pretty much it for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
So let's talk about a little known guy. I don't know if you've heard of him, Andy Serkis.
Yeah,
the greatest mocap actor of all time.
Oh man, Andy Serkis is just a gift to this earth. Oh my god.
I mean,
one of the most talented human beings alive.
Absolutely. Who can play a chimpanzee on screen better than an actual chimpanzee? This guy.
Or Gollum, or all of the other iconic roles. I mean,
yes,
Ulysses Claw in the MCU.
The most iconic role of all time, Snoke.
Snoke was a waste of his talent, man. I've got to say though, I fully believe in his directing abilities.
Yes. What Ross means by that is he is directing Venom.
Yeah.
Venom 2 is going to be directed by
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis. And I want to say, guys, Andy Serkis, when it came to Star Wars and I believe Avengers and all these things, he coaches people while they're filming the movie. He coaches anybody. He coaches the people that are talking to CGI suit characters. He coaches the CGI suit characters himself. I mean, when the names escape me. I swear. I'm sorry. I always blank out when it comes to the podcast. But when he was coaching the guy who plays Ultron, he was coaching not only him, but he was coaching James Spader. He was coaching Scarlet Witch. I don't remember. Elizabeth Olsen. And then the guy who plays Kick-Ass. He was coaching both of them on how to talk to James Spader while he was wearing the suit. And it's just, if he can do that, if he can coach people and direct the movie, I mean, this will be the best Sony Spider-Man movie, live action Sony Spider-Man movie.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how to feel about this because I didn't like Venom. I like parts of Venom.
I didn't like Venom at all. I thought it was worse than Spider-Man 3.
Oh yeah, no, I would watch Spider-Man 3 in a heartbeat over Venom.
Right, because at least Spider-Man 3, it's goofy. It doesn't
I
take
think
itself
Venom
too
is a
seriously.
colossal waste of Tom Hardy for one. I think Tom Hardy should have been the next Wolverine, and putting him as Eddie Brock is a major crime. I'm glad he has fun though. And I'm glad he enjoys it. I mean, he believes in it, and that's what matters. But um, yeah, man. I mean, I thought Venom. While there were some great sequences in there with the symbiote, and bless you, you know, the story was mediocre. The supporting cast was awful. And it wasn't their fault. I mean, it was just a poorly written movie. I mean, it's bad, man. I mean, when you see this director talk about Venom, the guy seems like he wants to die. Maybe that's a little harsh, but that being said, Andy Serkis being brought on to direct could change everything.
Yep. Yep.
You know, and
Absolutely.
so I'm not going to just jump on this and be like, "Oh no, Venom 2 is happening." No, I mean Andy Serkis could fix a lot of what we hated about Venom 1. And I still want Venom in the MCU, man, but I don't know if I want Tom Hardy's Venom. So it's a little weird. I didn't really think Venom was all that funny. I thought the story was just horrendous.
Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
bad.
it wasn't good, man. It was not. I'm glad other people enjoyed it. I made a figure of Venom, which I think still holds up pretty well. But this news, I was just kind of like, I feel like Andy Serkis could be doing something else that's way more worthy of his talent. Uh, that being said, I hope if he is directing that he'll also be doing one of the characters. Like, what if he does the mocap for Carnage or something?
Oh man.
You know,
Oh man.
that would be cool.
I really think an on-screen Carnage, dude. I think it needs to be a lot smaller than Venom, but just a
Why?
lot more. Well, because Carnage in comics is a lot smaller than Venom.
I don't know how I
is.
feel about that because it's like everybody also rails on about how Wolverine is like super short, and it's like I don't want a little midget Wolverine
No,
running around.
no, no, no.
But no, I know what you mean.
Finish real quick.
But I think
I
if
want him to
Carnage was
be.
bigger, it would be cooler.
No. I think Carnage should be at the core smaller, but I think it should be, you know, like the old Thing movie, where it just has tentacles rushing everywhere, making it this monstrous being. I mean, that's how I want to see it. So, Russ, I don't want him to be small. I want him as the core person Carnage. As the
I
core
just
villain
hope that
small.
at
And I
the
want
end
him
of
to
all this
be-
crap with Sony and this iteration of Venom, that we still get to the point in the MCU where Venom and Carnage can somehow enter the MCU, whether that's through Tom Hardy and and Carnage played by Woody Harrelson or not. It's just it's so aggravating that Venom that it became successful and now he's going to be existing outside the MCU for a foreseeable future. But I mean, Feige did talk about the potential for a crossover with Amy Pascal standing there at the Far From Home premiere. So I mean, it sounds like he's open to it, but not if Sony botches this next movie because it has to be worthy of crossing over first.
Yeah.
I mean, Feige has been very strict about what cross. I mean, like the Netflix shows and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. never even were alluded to in the MCU up until this point, and so we'll see.
Yeah.
With that being said, man,
I want to close with another Carnage thing, dude. What I meant by that is I don't want him to be big and imposing like Venom. You know what I mean? I don't want him to be another big imposing threat. I want him to be a small central thing with big cloud of appendages and symbiote tentacles.
when you say small, you mean you want him like the size of a dog.
No. I want him himself to be the size of a normal sized person, but I want the extension of his body to be a cloud. Like a cloud of
Red symbiote, yeah.
I will show you the comic stills that I'm basing that off of because, dude.
Yeah.
But anyway, change of pace. I just wanted to talk about Fire Emblem really quick. Now I know that this audience is a majority, MGF
Lego
fans who love Lego and Marvel. But this is a little piece of my own heart. I love Nintendo games. This is my third Fire Emblem I've ever played. I played Fire Emblem 3 on SNES Classic. I played Fire Emblem for Wii, whatever that one was, and and yeah, so this is pretty new for me playing a Fire Emblem game. And I want to say I've been getting into JRPGs a little bit more, and this game is just incredible. I never picked up the 3DS ones because the 3DS ones, I was told by my friends that do play these games, that the 3DS ones, they're kind of comic book characters. All of the characters are cartoony and over the top. And in this game, I mean, they did a really great job with the writing. A lot of the characters are stereotypes and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, the story is exhilarating. The characters are relatable. This game is a lot of fun. If you have a Nintendo Switch and do care about, story more than gameplay, I definitely pick this up. The gameplay is also really fun. It's a tactical top-down game, grid-based. And yeah, that's my 2 cents about this game. So if you have a Nintendo Switch, I would highly recommend this one.
Rock on, dude.
All right, and now that we did that, we have one more gaming thing.
Yeah, so just like 3 days ago, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 multiplayer reveal event thing happened, and so you got the base trailer that they released, and also like a 4-hour live stream they did. I mean, all the Call of Duty channels have been just doing coverage up the ass, and so we're just gonna watch the trailer, and I think Tate, you might be able to cue that up.
Yeah, but I'm trying to, but I'm black screening right now my window capture. Of course I am in the middle of the podcast. Give me a second, guys. I'm sorry.
Well, in the meantime, I can talk about it. If that doesn't work, I mean, we'll just throw up a still. But yeah, I mean, of course, the Modern Warfare reveal came. I think, what was it? When did the reveal come? Like just before E3, Tate? Forget.
I believe so.
Yeah. So while we're black screening, I don't know if, because this is a multiplayer reveal trailer, they're not obviously not going to be talking about the story or anything. So we still don't know if this is a reboot, if this is, they call it a reimagining, which could mean anything. But I'm telling you, man, if it's a reimagining of past events from the games, I'm going to be pissed, because the games and the story of those games should stand alone and should not just be redone or updated, if you ask me. And so it needs to either be a reboot or a sequel, full stop. And that being said, though, this being a gameplay multiplayer reveal trailer, this is pretty much exactly what I was hoping this game to look like. Thinking about the future, back in Modern, with Modern Warfare 3 in 2011, I was always kind of dreaming of like, what could a modern warfare game look like with even better graphics than what we have now, and this is really it, man. We've finally arrived, and what I love about this trailer, and Tate, do you have it queued up? You want to start playing it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You can go ahead and just play it, and I'll watch the stream. But the graphics are obviously really amazing, but there's also this really fantastic balance of color. So it doesn't look almost black and white like the previous Modern Warfare games. That was one thing about the Modern Warfare games that was always kind of made them slightly difficult to play. It was just the color palette was always very dry. This new reboot series, though, not so much with Modern Warfare here, and it looks amazing. It seems amazing. I don't know really anything about what's going on as far as like these missions that seem to be being portrayed in this trailer. I really didn't read up on like how any of this plays into multiplayer. Like, this obviously isn't like team deathmatch or any of the basic modes shown in this trailer. It almost looks like
co-op, dude. I hope this is a co-op, like, story-based thing. I mean, that'd be lots of fun.
And it's surprising that that's what they're advertising instead of like basic modes like usual, because that's obviously what people play the most. But hey man, if this is like some really great objective-based co-op where you're going up against AI or something, or whatever these are, similar to Spec Ops missions maybe, I would love that. I mean, because this looks like a blast. This looks like everything that I would want a 2019 Modern Warfare game to be like. I mean, you've got the return of the Javelin. You've got all kinds of crazy kill streaks like White Phosphorus, which is a new one, which a lot of people have been creating a controversy over, which I think is ridiculous. It's a game. Shut up. And yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to this. I mean, the gameplay just looks awesome. And I'm really hoping that they don't use microtransactions and loot boxes to ruin this. And at the baseline, I hope that microtransactions and loot boxes, if and when they're probably inevitably implemented, don't ruin the gameplay. I don't want to see...
Cosmetic only, please.
But even with the cosmetics, I don't want those to break the feel of this game, because like in the original Modern Warfare games, you had camos for the guns and that was it, and it didn't ruin the experience. So nobody was running around with lights and rainbows on their characters, and I'm hoping that won't be the case here, because then it'll start to feel like Black Ops again and start to lose its identity a little bit for me and blend in, because those things matter to me. And so we'll see what they do with the cosmetics and all that stuff that'll inevitably be added to the game. But I mean, this just looks really great, and I mean, like, exactly what you would want for a return to form for the franchise. You know, there's nothing shown here that hasn't been done in a Call of Duty game, as far as like the environment or the vehicles or the weapons. This just seems a lot more simplistic than the Black Ops series, for instance, or everything else that's come before in recent years. So I'm really looking forward to this. Definitely going to pre-order before that open beta. And yeah, man. Tay, what do you think of this multiplayer reveal?
Well, I have the game pre-ordered because I know you're gonna get it. That's kind of all.
Yeah.
I'm getting this game so I can play with Ross and my buddy Steven. I don't care for Call of Duty. I cared for the Call of Duty remaster because I played all of Modern Warfare. I played 1 through 3. I really enjoyed them all. I didn't enjoy Black Ops or Black Ops 2. I enjoyed Black Ops 2 Zombies mode. That was the best Zombies mode, I think. But
I actually never cared for zombies.
Yeah.
Never really found it to be that fun.
Well,
it's fun when you have a lot of people playing with you, like the full team. But if it's just like you and someone else, for instance, I never be that fun.
Oh, Steven and I had a lot of fun doing that one. We have a lot of. I mean, yeah. I the last Call of Duty I had was
Zombies was just like always so intense, and I always felt like I was never really ready to play it for that reason.
Yeah, so I have COD World War II. I sold that one quick. That one didn't really grasp me that much. I like
COD World War II though because of how simplistic it was. Because of, you know, I mean, it's not the best Call of Duty, but I mean, I thought that they nailed it as far as immersion goes for a simplistic World War II game.
I appreciated the zombies in that one, just because of the memories.
Never even touched it.
Yeah, I have Infinite Warfare, but I only bought Infinite Warfare because of the COD Remaster, because it was the only way to get COD Remaster. I played COD Remaster a couple times too. I liked it a lot.
You know what I love the most about COD Remastered? Not only was it fun to play through COD 4's campaign for the first time myself with the updated graphics, but dude, the prop hunt in COD 4 Remastered is so good.
It's fine. The gameplay.
Dude, I had a blast with that prop hunt with a couple of buddies of mine.
So the gameplay in MW Remastered is really good, I think. And
I heard they kind of screwed it up with some microtransactions, though.
Yeah, definitely, because they added all the the weapon variants and whatnot. I think if MW2 has that with the dual optic, like the dual optic where you can have an optic or you can lean off to the side, I like that a lot. Including the half opening doors and tossing grenades, that looks cool if that's an actual gameplay feature. But I think all of that looks good. But dude, it's turning into Rainbow Six Siege, and it's like, why would I play this when I can just play Rainbow Six Siege? Something that
I never played Rainbow Six.
Rainbow Six Siege has the tightest gunplay, I think, in FPS games. The tightest, and it's not realistic. It doesn't aim to be realistic, but it is consistent, and it is more consistent than any other game, and it's still inconsistent because it's still an FPS game, but it's not massive weapon blooms like Fortnite, and it's not super shaky camera like PUBG. I appreciate Rainbow Six a lot, dude.
Yeah,
but
maybe that's the next game you and I should play after we're done abusing GTA Online's new casino update that we talked about last week. We've been still playing that a lot.
Oh gosh, it's so fun. It's so
fun.
Man. I mean, it's mindless entertainment. But yeah, dude, Rainbow Six Siege on console sucks. I mean, I can't play it because it's so precise. Console doesn't work, I don't think. So like when you get your gaming PC, I think we'll have to hit up Siege.
Yeah,
I'm a huge Siege tryhard. I have like a 2.5 KD.
Oh man.
Yeah. And it's hard to get.
Finale a couple days ago, and I haven't watched it yet. But I've been keeping up with the series since it began. I remember when I first watched Swamp Thing on the DC Universe, the pilot, I was blown away by the quality. I mean, this show is HBO quality. I mean, it is really well shot. The performances are all pretty stellar. The cast is great. The story is fantastic. I'm not sure if I said that right, but I was not expecting to like this show. I love this show. And I'm not a big horror fan. I'm not a big gore fan. I am not a big fan of what this show mostly consists of. But it won me over because it's just so unique. I mean, the story is not like groundbreaking. And of course, no spoilers for Swamp Thing because I highly recommend you see it at some point, however you choose to do so. Um, I mean, what just really really blows me away consistently about the show is how they keep it so fresh and unique all the way through. Um, Now, that does lead to some problems within the story, some loose threads that are left open, some things that are just forgotten about, some actors playing cartoon roles essentially, or some performances not being that great by some of the other supporting cast members. But as far as Abby Arcane is concerned, and the town of Moray, and the rest of the cast, um, I mean, I was blown away, man. This whole time, every episode was entertaining. Every episode was immersive. Every episode had some elements of horror, and it's just a really compelling HBO level series that really makes the most out of the story of Swamp Thing and maintains its momentum throughout all 10 episodes. And I wasn't expecting that. And it's really been a joy to watch this series. Does this mean I'll make a custom Swamp Thing? Maybe at some point if I remember to down the line. But right now, the list of customs that I want to make is about 45 long, and he's not on it. So, that being said, man, one thing that is majorly, admirable about the series too is not just how incredible it looks the whole way through, but also the costume department is just incredible as far as Swamp Thing himself. I mean, it's amazing. It's a real practical costume, and it looks totally real and believable the whole way through in every episode, and it's amazing. And Swamp Thing sounds amazing. I really love this series. I think I've liked it a lot more than Doom Patrol, even, which is saying a lot because I really enjoyed Doom Patrol, even though I didn't finish up the last 5 episodes. It is far better than whatever the hell Titans is, that god awful heinous show. Swamp Thing is just, I think, the best thing that DC Universe has put out, it's a crying shame.
Close second, do you think?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Doom Patrol being a close second, absolutely. And I haven't seen Young Justice Outsiders on there yet, and I still think DC in a couple of years or so. But that being said, man, I really hope Netflix or somebody else will revive this show at some point, because so many shows have been brought back from the dead in the last few years that I don't think it's really
brought back from the dead, dude.
Well, I mean, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Let's not even talk about the old version.
Comic book.
Yeah. So I mean, I hope that this show is able to come back in some capacity. There were just a lot of problems with it, and apparently they didn't like how dark it was. Whoever's running, DC Universe, Warner Brothers folks, but the connections made between the characters, the conflict within Swamp Thing as he confronts what he is throughout this first season, and how he's going to exist now as this swamp creature, and how and discovering his abilities, and just everything that's covered with the corruption in the town and this mysterious dark force within the swamp. He kind of referred to as the Green. It's just, I'm so glad that the show in this first season pulled out all the stops, because I already feel satisfied with what they've done in this first season. And I still have yet to watch the series finale for this last, I think the 10th episode. And so I know by the end of the series finale, I'm probably going to be pretty sad. Like, I'm glad that they did this. because it's so good that I don't even think you would need a Swamp Thing movie. Like, for instance, with Titans, well, I hate that show so much, and it really upsets me because I would rather have a really good Titans film. But now it's probably not going to happen because of that show for several years, many years to come. But with this is just a really satisfying HBO level, quality set of 10 episodes exploring the story of Swamp Thing. And they could obviously go really far with it if they ever bring it back. And I just think it's a crying shame that that may not happen.
Bummer, man.
So if you like DC at all, if you're looking for a really good, compelling, dark series that takes you through this initial story of Swamp Thing, man, I highly. I know it's kind of like it's kind of whenever somebody sees the picture of him or kind of thinks about another another horror dark property coming from DC. People are quick to prescribe that stereotype DC has created for themselves, and a stereotype they've certainly leaned into with this and that shitty show Titans. But this is by far the best, darker, grittier show that DC has produced, by far. And I think that this is definitely worth a shot. Definitely consider checking this out, however you do so. And I'm looking forward to watching the end of it. But
yep, I know. I for one will be getting my DC Unlimited, whatever it's called, free trial when Swamp Thing and Doom Patrol and Young Justice are all up for grabs. Like they're all done with their seasons.
I think Doom Patrol's done, Swamp Thing's done. Who cares about Titans? Don't even bother.
Right, I'm not going to. I just want to binge watch those. I just want to binge watch those three.
And then
let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I think Young Justice is wrapping up. They might have wrapped up already.
Yeah, so
I think they might have all already wrapped up. I don't know. But yeah.
Gosh, we have a fight going on in the comments. I guess this transitions us into Endgame. Well, we're talking about Brie Larson. I'd like to share my 2 cents. I don't think Brie Larson's a heinous person. I don't think that she's I don't think she's a piece of garbage. I think that sometimes she speaks a bit out of line, but who doesn't? Right? I think that sometimes she has this kind of egotistical behavior when it comes to playing Captain Marvel, because now she's in talks of being the new lead character of the MCU. I mean, she's being a little bit heady about it. Do I think she deserves every bit of hate? Ross and I both expressed no. But is she a little annoying? Yeah. Is she a little annoying? Yeah.
She's definitely an outlier. That's for sure. Anyway, Brie Larson tangents aside,
I think we should talk about it. Dude, chat's kind of going off about it. Okay, we have Lego Pete. You're all plain wrong. She deserves all the hate.
I wouldn't go that far. I don't think she's that bad. I mean, has she said some questionable things? And yeah, I mean, have I heard some questionable stories about things happening at the premieres? Sure, but I mean, do I think she fits into the MCU as seamlessly as the rest of the actors? Absolutely not. I think anyone else could play Captain Marvel, and it would not matter. She doesn't embody the role like the rest of the MCU cast does.
But she's also not been given the time either. Although
I think she's been given the time.
Steve Rogers, or not Steve Rogers, what's it? Chris Evans, dude. I mean, that was Steve Rogers since the second he appeared on screen. Robert Downey Jr. was Iron Man the second he appeared on screen.
Oh, dude. I mean, and this goes for even outside the main Avengers. I mean, like, like Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. I mean, Paul Bettany as Vision.
Okay, I mean, Paul Bettany as Vision is probably the best casting in the MCU besides Iron Man.
I mean, every actor they've cast for the MCU has just embodied their roles. Brie Larson, if you ask me, is the first exception to that.
I wouldn't say. Well, maybe I'd have to think about it, but I think we could probably find another one.
I really can't think of anybody else in the MCU who didn't completely embody their roles. Yeah, honestly, the casting for the MCU has just been so consistently perfect every single time.
Yeah. But yet, does she deserve hate and fan rage? No. Has she said some very controversial things that should be addressed and criticized? I think so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's just... And it's a lot of it's her personality type, too. I mean, she's partially introverted. It's just kind of how she is.
Dude, I loved
and so I understand
before Captain Marvel. I absolutely adored her acting, her indie projects, the movies she was in. I adored Brie Larson. like I told you, Ross, when all of this happened, dude, I was really bummed out that she started acting super critical of the audience, man. I mean, that was an issue, I think.
Yeah.
But honestly, moving forward, I hope that Captain Marvel doesn't take this big, this big seat, if you will, this big role. I mean, I think that.
No, I mean, she just isn't the leader of the Avengers. No. I mean, even though Feige said that during the Marvel press tour, I do not think she should be the next leader of the Avengers. She's made it very clear she doesn't have time for the Avengers. And so I think that role should go to Doctor Strange. That should go to Sam Wilson, Cap, among others. Even Tom Holland several years down the line when he's older. But that being said, speaking of other MCU stuff, before we get to Endgame,
right,
Agents of
S.H.I.E.L.D. Sorry, I'm like putting anything up.
Season 6 has finally come to an end. Thank you, God. Now, let me just preface this. I've talked about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on the podcast a few times. I have kept up with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, since it began back in 2013. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had a very rough first season and really picked up its momentum once the Hydra plot was implemented. And then it has just been an incredible series ever since, with very few filler episodes. And season 4 was just the absolute peak of the series with Ghost Rider and New Life Model decoys and the framework and the Darkhold, and all of that stuff was just exceptional and by far my favorite season of the show, and probably will wind up staying that way even as we get to season 7. But even then, season 5 was the first season in which they had to completely depart from the MCU and not really even cover what's going on in the MCU because they weren't looped in on the happenings with Infinity War, like what's going on with that story. And so they just basically had the cast F off into a totally separate story. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was just totally disconnected from whatever was going on in the MCU at that present moment for season 5. And it just wasn't as good as season 4 ultimately. And season 5 was the first season in which you could really tell their budget was getting cut. I mean, they were reusing sets. They were cheaping out on the costumes. They were not bringing in a cast as talented. And I'm sure everybody put their all in, but it only got exceptionally worse with season 6. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything quite yet. I'll talk about spoilers in a second. But to just get my general thoughts on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 6 out, this story has been, compared to what they did in season 4, and hell, even season 2 and 3, were far better than this garbage. I mean, this was just a steep decline from the last couple of seasons. I mean, even season 5 wasn't that great, but this has just been rock bottom. I mean, this story has been garbage. The cast have been trying to give it their all still, and the performances are all fine for the most part. But the story I mean, oh my God. I was just impressed by how bad it is. It doesn't feel like the MCU anymore. They've completely departed from the MCU at this point and are just doing whatever. Whatever. I mean, it's just, they started to embrace some horror elements and just the sets and where they shoot are so cheap and so reused, and they have so many extras that occupy screen time and that are just awful. They have this new villain who enters the season later on who's just terrible. And I mean, I cannot believe how bad this season was, because the show was so great. Season 2, 3, 4, even though 5 wasn't as good, it wasn't this bad. This was just horrendous. And so back when season 5 ended and they came out and said, oh yeah, no, we're not canceling the show with season 5. We're going to do a season 6. It's going to be 13 episodes. And then we're going to do season 7 even. But then season 7 is also going to be 13 episodes. So they weren't doing the full 22, 23 episode run. I mean, and it didn't help. even in their usual 22, 23 episode length seasons, they're able to maintain momentum. In these 13 episodes for season 6, they were just doing whatever, man. I mean, it would just switch from dark horror with random characters to unfunny humor. I was just amazed. And so season 6 is by far the worst season of the show by far. I couldn't believe it. I did keep it on and, would play the episodes in the background as I 85 and Captain America. But that being said, I'm not excited for the future of this series for these last 13 episodes. They should have ended it with season 5, honestly. They needed to wrap it up earlier than this because now it's just dragging on and they really don't have any kind of decent direction. And I think the end of season 6 made that very clear as well. So, spoilers for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 6, if you care. I just want to kind of cover how convoluted this is in particular. So, this is also some spoilers for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 5. So, this is kind of your warning for what happens to one of the characters at the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 5. So, if you have not seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you plan on watching it, you might want to tune out. So, that being said, at the end of season 5, Coulson dies. And he, the deal he made with the Spirit of Vengeance pretty much kind of ruined the Kree blood within him or whatever was used to keep him alive all this time that Fury did. And all that was kind of ruined with the Spirit of Vengeance that he had to use to kill Ada. And so he's dead. And what do they do with this whole season 6 plot? They bring him back through a portal with this little trucker squad. Oh no, this guy looks just like Coulson, but he's like some other guy from space. And he's just this random evil trucker Coulson. And eventually, as they progress through this god-awful season, they reveal that this version of Coulson was created by the 3 monoliths placed in a random, because basically, just like Ghost Rider, there are these formless entities that can possess people, that can that exist without bodies, right? The Spirit of Vengeance can exist without Robbie Reyes, without Johnny Storm. It's an entity. And so basically the idea is a similar like there's a planet full of entities like that, kind of like similar to the planet, that the symbiotes come from. There's just a planet of those entities. And then Coulson's body was duplicated by the monoliths. One of those entities possessed that body, got placed in a random point in time, given all kinds of false memories that he didn't know what to do with, and has been chasing down this redhead bob cut lady for decades. And then that all turns out to be a lie, and then he just winds up being this cartoon CGI villain that's unveiled by it's garbage. It is laughable. I don't want to go all in on all 13 of the episodes, but they had to really try to make it this bad. This was CW bad. And so it was just a shame because I always thought Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., for the limited budget they had to work with, always made the most of it, always maintained momentum in the story, always kept you feeling engaged. And that really died with season 5's awful finale. And I think the show is just going to experience a decline from here on out, because now with season 6 finale, they basically are just like, oh, here comes Gemma and Fitz from the future. And even in the future, there's still no Coulson. So they made a life model decoy of him. And now we got to fight Chromicons, or whatever the hell they're called, Chronicons, for season 7. And that's, I guess, going to be it. I guess so they're going back to the future or something. I have no idea. I don't care, because this whole season was an insult to the incredible story they maintained throughout the season 2 through even 5. And the cast really tried, but the story was just horrible. And so, with that being said, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one here besides Golden Light in the chat who watches Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I appreciate you guys sitting through my rant. I could say so much more about how awful Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was for a variety of reasons, but I don't care enough to. So we're going to talk about Avengers Endgame. Yes, sir. Finally,
Here comes the hate train. Here comes the comments that say,
Yeah,
I don't agree. You guys are idiots.
That's
what they're gonna
it's gonna
say.
be a little bit. It's gonna be even more negative, guys, going from here on out. So, like we said at the beginning,
it's all gonna be nitpicks and annoyances, grievances, frustrations, annoyances. Any words you want to use. I mean, we're not gonna be talking positives on most of Endgame. There are things we love about the movie that we probably will talk about, but.
Oh yeah, man, and I would just really like to preface this whole thing with. I could not imagine being in the position of either two writers, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, or the Russo brothers, working on these movies for all these years, nonstop, basically. It's a miracle that they were this amazing. I mean, these guys haven't stopped. And I just want to commend them for being able to put together the biggest movies of all time sequentially like this. I mean, it has been a historic feat. On the part of the Russo bros, on the part of the two writers, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and all the thousands of people that worked on these movies. I cannot commend them enough for this incredible achievement that has been. These guys started with the Captain America: The First Avenger. They even did, the writers, they did Thor: The Dark World. We won't talk about that. But then they did Winter Soldier. They did Civil War. They did Avengers: Infinity War, which is a masterpiece. They did Endgame as well. I mean, these guys haven't stopped. Yeah. And so I cannot commend them and thank them enough for the achievements that they have pulled off. And I, again, like I said, I love Endgame. I love Infinity War more, but I want to make sure that I preface how much I still love Endgame. Even though we're going to cover a lot of nitpicks here and a lot of problems that we already have with the movie that have kind of been expanded upon, that have kind of festered since we have seen it. Now having it on digital, now having sat through the directors and writers commentary, we figure it's worth revisiting for the last segment of this show, and Tait doesn't love Endgame as much as I do.
Hey, I was saving that for Tait too.
But
guys, when I first saw Endgame, I was like, okay, cool, this movie's like an 8 out of 10 because I just saw freaking Captain America wield Mjolnir and I got super giddy and nerdgasmed a bit. But now that I've sat on it, listen to what the writers and the directors have to say, listen to what Kevin Feige has had to say. Dude, I'm bringing Endgame down to like a 7. Maybe like 6.5 even.
Yeah, man.
For me, Endgame is everything I dislike about the MCU, and the reason I don't call myself an MCU fan like Russ or like you viewers.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that prevents me from enjoying the MCU is in Endgame. And I still enjoy Endgame, don't get me wrong. And I enjoyed Far From Home, but Far From Home and Endgame, very similar for me. Very much, these are fun movies, but there's a lot of issues, man. I want to say, I absolutely despise a lot of the MCU, so I'm not saying that I...
Oh my God, Tait, calm down.
I'm not saying that I hate Endgame. All right, I'm not saying that it's horrible, because there's a lot worse that the MCU has to offer, but it's mid-tier for me. It's such a shame that this came after Infinity War.
Yeah. Because for me, Infinity War encapsulated a lot of did. Because when Infinity War and Endgame were announced in 2014, I mean, just imagining what the culmination of the Infinity Saga could look like. For me, Endgame was not that. Infinity War was more so. But Endgame... Listen, man, I wouldn't be making all these figures if I didn't love Endgame. I wouldn't be pouring my heart and soul into the making of the figures that I'm working on right now and this first showcase if I didn't adore this 3-hour film that wraps up the Infinity Saga. We waited years for this. It delivers on a lot of its promises, but half of them I would say Endgame doesn't. And I just and so to take this opportunity to comment on a lot of what was said in the director's commentary, I first think it would be good to break down how time travel was established.
Oh, so, God, this annoys me so much.
I want to get through this really quick, but also, time travel doesn't have to be complicated.
No,
the writers lean on this as a crux a lot of the time when explaining it. You don't want to think about it too much. Time travel doesn't work. It doesn't exist, how you put it. But that being said, you can establish very clear and easy to follow rules. And the whole Hulk explainer scene with Rhodey and Ant-Man and the Ancient One, those two scenes were introduced to make it simple, but they had the opposite effect. And so basically, You had 3 versions of time travel introduced in Endgame, and this is one of the biggest avoidable problems in Endgame. Because it's like you had the Hulk come in and tell the audience, going back to the past doesn't change the future, because that is now your new present. And okay, so they're going against the usual time travel rules we've seen. They're going to go back to the past, make changes, and it won't affect the future because that's not how it's going to work in the MCU. Got it.
And that would be fine.
And then you get to 2012 New York and it gets to the Ancient One. Well, guess what? Now the Ancient One introduces a new explainer that you do affect the future, but that future is now on a new timeline in an alternate reality, a branch reality. That's different from what the Hulk said. Now you have 2 explainers for what happens. And then at the end of the movie, you get to Steve Rogers sitting on that log, and that directly contradicts both of those explainers.
And then you know what? I when the Infinity War episode first came out, I was like, no, dude, he must have gone back to the platform and just ran around, right? Ran around to the bench and whatnot. No, guess what? The writers confirmed. The writers confirmed that they had always thought there were 2 Caps.
Yeah, and that in the Winter Soldier, when you see those pictures of Cap, or when you see those pictures of Peggy's family sitting on her nightstand, in that scene with her old Peggy Winter Soldier, the reason that you don't see Steve in those pictures is because it was Steve the whole time, and that maybe even that old guy holding her casket was an older Steve, and just nobody noticed. And it's like, listen, man, the writers said that was their interpretation, which again directly contradicts their 2 explainers of time travel in the MCU.
Not 1 explainer.
But it almost creates a 3rd. And the Russo bros, though, said no. He goes then he creates an alternate reality, which makes more sense. So I just don't understand. Like, all you have to do, 1 explainer. Every time you go back to a different year, if you make a change in that year, you create an alternate branch reality. Done.
Change.
That's it.
Yeah.
Done. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need... oh, the past doesn't affect the future. You don't need Steve sitting on a log. You didn't have to create these confusions. And Tate, what bothers me the most about it is, guys, when you really, like, you can think about this in a very precise manner. Don't confuse yourself in your mind when you think about MCU time travel, because it's really not that complicated. When you go back to a certain year and you make a change, time has now conformed to that change. You've made the change.
It shouldn't be complicated, but the writers, and this is what I was trying to expose during the Endgame talk, it doesn't need to be complicated, but the way it was executed can be torn apart, can be overthought. And that's unfortunate. And that's what I just want to say, chat. That's what we were trying to talk about in the Endgame, the initial Endgame video. That they contradict themselves. They allow us to pick apart the time travel. So it's not our fault as viewers for overthinking it. I think it's
these are the rules they established, and following their rules
is their job. Their job is to follow their rules.
It's not just their job, but they even there's a second contradiction in the entire concept of Cap bringing back the stones. Because they say bringing the stones back and placing them right back in those alternate realities would correct all of them.
But that would just create another alternate timeline.
Right, because the Loki TV series directly contradicts that. Because what that says is, think about it. In that alternate timeline, and especially now that the Loki series is being made, those consequences clearly stuck. Because now there's going to be a Loki series where he did get away with the Tesseract, and where that Cap did face his future 2023 self. And so when you go back to a certain year and you make those changes, they're set. You've made the change. And so Cap going back again is just going to create another alternate timeline and double up on the ones they already made by making changes in the first place, if that makes sense. So you now have 2 sets of alternate timelines by their own rules. And to add all this unnecessary confusion to that, I just don't understand why that had to be the case. Again, it's very simple. You go back to a certain year, you make a change, alternate timeline. You go back again to that year and you make a change, alternate timeline. Every time you do this, it's an alternate timeline. Yeah. And everybody will be quick to say, no, by bringing the stones back, that prevents those alternate timelines. Well, guess what? The Loki series directly contradicts that.
Right. Ross, this is why I was saying before Endgame, like the podcasts before Endgame came out. that no franchise can include time travel and make it work. Make it consistently work.
And now, it's so aggravating to me because it's so it's if you ask me, it's easy to do if you pay attention, you know.
It's not though, because dude, you have so many paradoxes when it comes to time travel.
No, I mean, if you just establish some clear and concise rules, I do think it is easy. If you are constantly aware of it's not hard to do. And by their own rules, the past does not affect the future because whenever they go back, they create alternate timelines. That's it. Leave it there. So Cap going back and bringing the stones back, he's making more changes. He's making more alternate timelines. That's all that's happening here. That's it. Done.
Yep.
You don't need to make it more complicated.
Look at what Frozen Nugget said. Now Lucasfilm will attempt that for the Rise of Skywalker. Imagine
I saw that, Ian. Yeah, I saw Red Letter Media. Star Wars Episode 9. I mean, that's certainly possible, and there's definitely evidence in that trailer that kind of points to it, which I thought was pretty surprising. But anyway, that being said, that's the big glaring issue with time travel in Endgame and the MCU moving forward. Not even just that they open a can of worms that basically they can travel back and visit wherever they want now with the Pym particles. And even solve more problems in the future because they can travel back to, the past and create more alternate realities whenever they need to do this, like they did in Endgame. But, it's almost like, what's to stop Hulk and the Avengers from saying, oh, well, Thanos doesn't exist in our timeline anymore, so let's go back and get the Infinity Stones whenever somebody, Galactus shows up. All right, grab some Pym particles. Let's go get the stones again, snap them away, bring them back, grab
Black Widow, grab the Ancient One.
Yeah, and I mean, the reason, of course, they won't be bringing back duplicates is because that would be selfish, where those timelines need those people, to defeat Thanos.
Just put them right back, Ross, right?
Oh, yeah. Back. But by their own rules, that's not how that works. And
hey, Peter Parker, let's just make a Spider-Man army and we'll put them all back. Yeah. I want to see a what if episode where they just keep going back and increasing the size of their Avengers army.
Oh no!
Gosh, sick that.
But
Doctor Strange does not still have the Time Stone. No Infinity Stones exist in our 616, quote unquote.
Yeah, that kind of hit me like yesterday. Like, wow, the Infinity Stones are now gone from the main timeline. After all of that, all those years, the Infinity Stones are no longer timeline. They're just atoms floating around unseen somewhere.
I think there's going to be some sort of reconstruction, like some cosmic.
I hope not, man. I think they need to.
I think they need to change it up, but I think that's going to happen, dude.
Yeah. But one thing that still continues to bother me, and I mentioned this on Twitter. The 2014 Thanos problem.
Oh yeah, this is probably your biggest issue, isn't it?
Oh, it's hands down my biggest issue. And I posted it on Twitter and on Instagram recently. Mentioned it because I didn't, I only kind of talked about it here, and I think once in my Endgame review on my main channel. But I bring this up again because in the director's commentary, the two writers basically said, we got frustrated. We were in a room sitting down for 3 weeks trying to figure out what do we do with main Thanos. He has all the stones, and if the Avengers make a move on him, they're dead. Hands, full stop. And that was the problem. And then somebody else they know walked into the room and was like, can't we just kill him? And so they're like, oh yeah. And so they did. And it's like, no. Listen, man. They worked all these years to build up to Infinity War, to bring in Thanos, to create this masterful new villain, this incredible new villain with all this depth, who fully believed in his plan. And he's also the best looking CGI creation the MCU has ever seen.
No, probably
he
ever.
Was amazing.
I mean,
and he was this multi-layered villain that they gave him the whole movie for Infinity War. He was amazing. Thanos was really brought into fruition in the greatest of ways in Infinity War. And if you went back in time and told me that, you went back in time in 2014 and told that Ross, yeah, they're going to do that for Infinity War, But then in Endgame, they're just going to chop his head off really quick and have him destroy the stones, and then they're going to go grab a 2014 version of him from the past who never experienced any of that, who never had the character growth, who never met the Avengers, who never assembled the Infinity Stones, who never had to sacrifice Gamora, who was never even betrayed by Gamora in the first place because he's from right before the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. There's something shallow about that. There will always be something shallow about that. There will always be something lessened about Tony's sacrifice because it is not the Thanos. He is sacrificing himself to defeat. It is a time remnant Thanos and an army of other time remnants from that just didn't even participate in Infinity War. They're ghosts. It's not the real deal. Yes, the threat is still very real, but there are no emotional stakes anymore. The emotional stakes were completely robbed from Thanos and the Avengers. I mean, that connection that they spent all of Infinity War establishing between him and the gone. He never met them. This is 2014 Thanos. None of it ever happened to him. And they go on about saying, 2014 Thanos is a younger Thanos. He's more aggressive, and this allows him to be more combative in the final battle because main Thanos is more philosophical and wiser. It's like, listen, if they found a way to keep main Thanos and they brought him back into the final battle, you're damn straight he would have fought his hardest to protect his work. And now the problem there is he would still have these stones. And so the writers, they didn't want to have, this is their quote basically, I'm paraphrasing, but this is what they said. They didn't want to have a cat and mouse movie where the Avengers were trying to make moves on Thanos without, him basically killing all of them instantly with the Infinity Gauntlet. And my proposal, or just one of any myriad of ideas that they could have come up with, and any ideas that they're being paid millions of dollars to come up with. Say when they go to the garden, they have one hell of a battle against him there, and they're able to grab the Soul Stone. And the Soul Stone is, the Soul Stone or the Power Stone, the two stones that are primarily used in the snap to wipe out half of all life. They grab one of those stones so he can't do it again. He can't just snap people away. He needs the Soul Stone or the Power Stone to do it. But he's still all powerful because he still has 4 or 5 of the stones. And just anything. They could have done anything. They're being paid millions of dollars. They needed to keep main Thanos alive. I mean, like, Tate, imagine if you get to the end of Return of the Jedi and either Vader or Palpatine have been swapped out with, like, Phantom Menace Palpatine or Attack of the Clones Anakin. Like, what are we doing? Why did they... This is the problem, and why Infinity War, in large part, will always be the superior movie for me, despite the final battle in Endgame visually being just about everything we could have ever hoped for, and the greatest moment of the MCU. You have this shallow Thanos in place of what should have been main Thanos. And
easily fix it by bringing, you have a Nebula manipulation scene where Nebula goes to the garden with Rocket Raccoon and Captain Marvel. She goes to the garden, manipulates Thanos, says, "You won, but you left me behind." Something like that distracts him long enough for Captain Marvel to get a good sock in or two. Rocket Raccoon grabs one of the Infinity Stones. Maybe the Time Stone, so we can't do any time shenanigans.
If Captain Marvel was quick enough, she could have got in there and grabbed one of the stones easy. Did you see how quick she jumped Thanos?
Yeah, true.
She could have grabbed the Power Stone easy.
And flown away.
They could have done something else. And that will always bother me. Because to me, the culmination of the Marvel Cinematic Universe should have also been the culmination of all these characters. And you cannot have the culmination of Thanos' story or Thor's story because they experienced, if you ask me, absolute character assassination.
Oh, we've talked about this extensively.
Yeah, man. And so I know this sounds repetitive, but it just bothers me because the writers, it just doesn't bother the writers. They firmly believe it was the right decision, and they make that clear and they say it in a pretty concise way in the commentary. And so that bothers me to hear that from
the writers who wrote the first Avenger, the Winter Soldier, and Civil War don't care. That doesn't sound right to me. Those are honestly, Civil War. It's just like Civil War Infinity War and Winter Soldier, I think, are the three best Marvel movies. Maybe you swap out Civil War for Iron Man 1, but I mean those are just those are great movies. And it's super sad to see these glaring issues when Winter Soldier was tight. Infinity War was tight.
Right. In like
Civil War,
Winter Soldier,
there were a few things. There were a few things in Civil War, but they were all tight. They were all refined. They were all thought through very well. All of the characters were personified perfectly. All of their emotions showed very well. But
yeah, and that's the thing about Infinity War is and that's why this was also surprising for me watching Endgame, because Infinity War is so airtight. You think about anything in Infinity War's story, there is a reason for it. There is a logical explanation for it. Every scene moves the story forward in a meaningful way. The same cannot be said for Endgame. Endgame, I think, deserved to be 3 hours, but those 3 hours should have been used better. There were at least 5 scenes in Endgame I would cut out.
Mm-hmm.
And watching like the closing sequence, for instance, this is another thing that the writers and directors kind of patted themselves on in this commentary, was the scene between Thor and Star-Lord. While yes, it was funny, it was so out of place.
Mm-hmm.
It was so out of place because you're going from I don't think you needed to show any sort of conclusion for Thor in Endgame. They could have left him the way he was and not had that scene at all with him and Valkyrie. I think they could have saved all of that for Thor: Love and Thunder. And
I'm so glad. Side note:
they could have just shown him getting on the Benatar with Star-Lord and flying away. They didn't need that whole scene because you go from the conclusion of Tony Stark's story. You go from his snap to his death to his closing statements and his funeral, and then you just have this Thor and Star-Lord scene shoved in the middle, and then now we're jumping to the end of Steve Rogers' story as he gets onto the time platform. And it's like, whoa, why is this scene here?
That Star-Lord Thor scene should have been the post-credits scene.
If Thor's story is not ending here, keep him the hell out of this final part of the movie. Right. The ending of Endgame should have been reserved for Tony and Steve. There should not have been this whole humorous sequence between Thor and Star-Lord jammed in the middle of the end of Iron Man and the end of Captain America's story. Like, why is this scene here? It is. Listen, man. I know that it got laughs. I know people had fun with it, but it should not be there, and it should not be in the movie.
It's like
full
out of place comedy is the biggest issue I have with the MCU.
I mean, watching Endgame 9 times in theaters, I didn't even notice it. But then watching it the director's commentary, I'm working on my own Iron Man, and then I'm looking up and I'm like, God, even the hard cuts in between those 3 sequences are awful. That whole Star-Lord scene with Thor at the end should not be there. Anyway,
MGF Customs.
Yeah, man. I love Endgame, but I have a lot of problems. If you want me to list off positives with Endgame, I mean, I can go for. I think Ronan was incredible all throughout the movie. I think Smart Hulk was perfect. I mean, Natasha's story was fantastic. I mean, Steve and Tony were amazing all the way through. I mean, the whole sequence in the 70s with Howard Stark and Hank Pym and Peggy was just phenomenal. I love half of Endgame and really dislike the other half, is the best way I can put it.
Fair.
Maybe I would say I like 60% of Endgame. But then the other 40% really will always bother me because it was so unnecessarily littered with problems like these. And in those special features too, there's another moment where they talk about the Black Widow sacrifice scene on Vormir. And now a lot of people thought the scene was fine. I personally think that it was great too. But in those special features, there are shots of Black Widow kind of fighting on top of that mountain because, of course, there existed a scene where 2014 Thanos arrived on Vormir and was coming up that mountain, and they had to make this decision under duress who was going to go over and get the stone, the Soul Stone. Now, Tate disagrees with me on this.
I like that they had an intimate scene where they had to
because
weigh the options and destroy themselves internally.
Yeah, but one thing the Russos and the writers really went all for with Endgame were the character moments. Endgame is a movie about characters. I mean, it focuses on them more than action or anything else. And that's important because this is the last time you're getting to see a lot of them. And this is the last time they will all be together in their original, as the original Avengers. But that being said, there's plenty of time all throughout the MCU to have these moments. If you are talking about the final moments of the Infinity Saga, the grand finale of 22 films, and all of these character stories building to these last 3 hours, you're damn straight I want to see Black Widow and Hawkeye under duress having to quickly decide who is going to sacrifice themselves while Thanos and his 2014 army are coming up that mountain. That sounds incredible. That sounds like a moment that you would expect for the grand finale of the Infinity Saga. That is the large-scale, large-stakes moment that I think is necessary. And especially would have really wrapped up the time heist nicely. Because the time heist is great. The 2012 New York sequence is great. The 1970s Howard Stark sequence at that military installation there are great moments. I mean, the time heist is good. It's slow on the action, but that would have really been a perfect cherry on top for me, if you ask me, because the time heist has the stakes always as like a background element. Like when you don't really feel reminded of it until you get to the Vormir scene that, oh yeah, if they fail at any one of these goofy, scenarios that are happening when they're, jumping into various points in time, they don't get to bring back half the universe. And those stakes really don't announce themselves throughout the time heist that much. But they certainly would have if Natasha and Clint came that close to failing. And how powerful of a moment would it have been if it wasn't just the two of them on top of that mountain with Red Skull standing there, but if you also have the greatest threat to the universe clawing its way up that mountain. Now, Tate, it's not about being
on board, man. I can't.
It's not about being big on action. It's about being big on the stakes in the grand finale of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Ross, the stakes are there. They were not.
But they're in the background.
But here's the thing, Ross. They were not prepared to lose anyone during the time heist.
Which would have made it all the more reason to have.
See, Ross, they were not told by Nebula that Vormir required a sacrifice, if she even knew. They were not told that there would be these big, resounding issues with it.
Okay.
They were completing what seemed to be a relatively easy and straightforward mission, and when they get there, they see the biggest roadblock possible. They have to sit there and consciously say, I am killing one of us. One of us is dying in order to complete the mission. If Thanos was there, it's like, okay, do I let Thanos kill me or do I kill myself in order to complete the mission? Obviously, you're going to kill yourself to complete the mission. But if you're sitting there and have to marinate in the reality of the situation, you have to marinate and say, one of us really does have to die. They have nothing but time on their hands. I mean, have you seen the movie? What is it called? It's James Franco, and it's about the boulderer, the rock climber who gets his I think it's his arm or his leg caught under the rock. And he's just sitting there. And the entire movie is a psychological analysis of what to do in that situation, of being stuck in a situation where you have nothing but time. You have to make a choice for survival. They had to make a choice for survival.
And I think that choice could have been really powerful if they had a little less time to marinate.
But here's the thing, Ross,
it happened the way, yeah.
When time is essentially limitless because you can just go back further, right? When time,
well, no, because they didn't know Tony and Steve were gathering them.
But still, I mean, they could have sat there for months and months if they really wanted to. They could have, because they had the pin particles to return. They could have sat there for as long as they needed. They had, the only motivation was completing the mission. If Thanos chasing them was also motivator, by all means, they just, both of them would jump off. You know what I mean? It'd be so simple. It would be so simple because Thanos is going to kill you anyway. So you might as well sacrifice yourself and complete the mission. It takes away all emotional stress from the situation.
I get it. And it's not that I dislike the scene. It's just this is kind of like the secondary version that I personally would have gone with, and that's obviously why I write the movie, because I agree that that is a unique scenario, having to wallow in that and not having the choice be so simple because Thanos is not there, because the stakes aren't being immediately felt in a grandiose sequence like that. But it still would have looked amazing. I mean, if you see those unused shots of Scarlett Johansson with her pistols out and the absolute terror in her eyes, she was giving a great performance in this unused version of the scene, Tate. Ross, I mean, it looked incredible.
I'll parlay with you, dude. I'll parlay with you. For Endgame specifically, for Avengers Endgame, the culmination of 11 years, maybe the fight would have been a sight to behold. If it were the Black Widow solo movie, or another solo movie, or even Avengers 1, I would keep this thing. Maybe because it is Endgame, it is the big movie. I don't know, man. I think I'd be happy with either, but I prefer what we got.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still happy with the sequence. Now, if I did have to nitpick how it was handled, I really disagreed with using the exact same score Alan Silvestri put together for Gamora's death. And I've told you this, Tate, because that was designed for a slower scene. Literally a slow motion scene when Thanos kills Gamora in Infinity War. And then Alan Silvestri had to chop it up and use it for a faster version of the scene in the form of Black Widow's death for Endgame. And if you ask me, it didn't play as well. It really didn't. And when she lets go of Hawkeye's hand, it's kind of awkward, the fall and the way the music just suddenly picks up like they did with Gamora. And you aren't building into it the same way. So I would have definitely changed up the score, even with the scene we have. But that being said, man, it is still a solid place to finish off Natasha's story. And I'm glad they're not bringing her back and that her solo movie is going to be, a prequel and take place right after Civil War. Now, that being said, speaking of the time heist, I didn't even know this, but John Slattery was totally de-aged as Howard Stark all throughout that sequence, and I had no idea. I don't know why. I don't pay attention enough to John Slattery and his movies he's in, so I guess I just kind of forgot how old he is. But I didn't even know that. Isn't he? I don't know. Like that. I certainly that totally slipped past me, and that was actually kind of a surprise. I mean, that's how perfect the de-aging technology is. I had no idea. I saw the movie 9 times. I had no idea. And the same thing can be said for Stan Lee's final cameo. They de-aged him, and I didn't know that, which is really cool. It's so fast that, I mean, it's not like I could pause to see he had less wrinkles inside that car. I guess I'm just a lot less observant now than I was when I was younger. But yeah, man. And one other nitpick about Endgame, and we talked about this, Tate, it's like I think that the whole time jump of 5 years could have been handled a bit more realistically, because when you really put into context just how long it has been, I mean, it's been like 7 years since Civil War, 7 years since the Avengers were together. And they don't really make that felt in the movie. They just kind of assemble like, oh, you know, they saw each other last month. You know? I mean, 7 years is a long time. And, you know, and there are other little details that kind of cue you into that all throughout Endgame. In terms of, you know, what some of those details might be. You know, it's kind of like, for instance, with Natasha's scene earlier on in the movie. It makes sense that with such a calamity like that to take place, half of the population to disappear, that that Natasha would still be wallowing in it. But it's like in that scene, she says, you know, anybody's doing something they're not supposed to, comes through me. Like as if this is a new channel they just now set up for this new world post the snap, but it's been 5 years. Just the little small details like that you can pick up on that make the time jump feel a little less real. Because 5 years is half a decade. 5 years is a long time. Yeah. And it's just the little nuances and the subtleties that I feel like fell by the wayside if you really pay attention. But that's also kind of nitpicky, and, you know, it's not going to ruin the movie for anybody. It's not going to. It certainly doesn't ruin the immersion.
I really wanted a scene where there were, you know, UN/American Red Cross booths set up helping people who maybe had lost, like kids who maybe had lost their parents, or people who were being supported by another person, like single mothers or, you know, single fathers, or people that just were homeless now. And I wish that there was some sort of UN, you know, food stand that Professor Hulk was working at. If you could replace the diner scene with a scene where,
anything else
with Professor Hulk and Natasha passing out food packages, I mean, that would have been incredible in my opinion. Or take, you know, Professor Hulk using his Hulk side, maybe clearing cars out of the road, like a car accident, maybe because the police, the emergency forces are not so organized anymore. Maybe he, you know, lifts cars out of the road if there's an accident. Whatever, something that was the city, because that
they actually did have a couple. They did have a couple scenes exactly kind of like what you're describing.
The firefighter scene just looked like normal New York. It just looked like normal
like the
New
firefighter
York.
Scene was just like it didn't cap again. The firefighter scene that they showed the Endgame re-release, that deleted scene would have been the biggest problem with the time jump if they included it, because it's just like business as usual. Regular firefighters, regular burning building. You wouldn't even know the snap happened. I mean, that would have been the wrong scene for Professor Hulk.
I agree.
But yeah, and it's just like a scene that was really disappointing how the snap was handled. I mean, I wanted to see what life was like, not just on Earth, but if this whole movie is taking us around the MCU from the past, what the hell does Xandar look like now? 5 years after Thanos' attack and the decimation. You know, what does you know, there are other locations they could have visited in the MCU. You know, what does maybe the Camartage look like? I mean, they're not coming to me at the moment, but there's so many big locations in the MCU you could have visited. What do the streets of New York look like? Just that was the thing that Joss Whedon nailed.
Yeah.
In 2012's Avengers, you had the civilians mattered, and whenever they had a civilian, they, you know, take the forefront of the screen. It was really good. You had that older man that stood up in the midst of the civilian crowd who were being oppressed by Loki. In the end, you will all kneel. He stands up, not to men like you. And that's amazing to me. That was incredible. That's what the Avengers fight for. Mm-hmm. They fight for people like him, for humanity. Humanity matters. The extras do matter. Those civilian moments matter. It makes the Avengers feel connected to humanity and not just themselves. And it was surprising because they didn't abandon that for the Winter Soldier. Like in the Winter Soldier, the Triskelion, when all those S.H.I.E.L.D. agents were uniting with Cap and turning against the Hydra agents who were also their best friends, those scenes were, I mean, the weight felt it in those scenes was incredible. When one man, when a couple guards would pull their pistols on approaching Hydra agents, yes, they were extras, or they weren't leading cast members, but those scenes mattered. Those scenes really made you feel for what was actually going on around the Avengers. And in the Russo Bros basically said that, and I've said this a couple times on the podcast, that they prefer to, they would prefer to shoot a scene with Jeremy Renner instead of like extra 4 and 5. And it's like, what are you talking about? The snap just happened. Half of all life in the universe was just erased. Yeah. Trillions of people, not just millions and billions on Earth, trillions of people across the known universe.
Well, I mean, the expanse of the
Why
universe is unknown.
aren't we taking time to see civilians? The little meeting with Joe Russo shoved in there, talking about his date. What was that? Chris Evans was great in that scene. He was fantastic. But what was that? That's what we got.
No,
what we got for civilians.
We needed to see some sort of philanthropic effort by the Avengers. They failed at defending. You know what we got? Remember Civil War at the beginning where that lady talks about how her son got killed in Sokovia? Why didn't we have that in Avengers Endgame? This is a bigger failure than Sokovia. Way bigger failure than Sokovia. So why didn't somebody go up to Captain America and say, "You weren't good enough. None of you were good enough." Something like that, plus some sort of philanthropic work by the Avengers, because I
cannot believe how much they skipped out on, man. I cannot believe how much they skipped.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I wanted to see New York, L.A., London, Chicago, Xandar, just sweeping shots. See the humanity that has left so many, trillions of people, and billions on Earth who have lost their loved ones, who have gone for 5 years without them. And then Far From Home was such a poorly placed movie because it had to be the first out. Because the Spider-Man movie had to make a joke out.
These students just came back to life 8 months ago. 8 months ago. These students, including Peter, that had either failed or been wiped out from existence, they come back 5 years later, like they were just sleeping. There's nothing about that. The only thing we get is Flash Thompson trying to buy alcohol. That's the only thing we get in the entire movie.
And they make a joke out of it, and they call it the blip. And Happy's going on about his little, what are we doing? And that's the problem, man. And Spider-Man, it deals with young kids. It makes sense, and that's just a poor placement. In terms, that's how it lined up. Spider-Man: Far From Home had to be the first movie after Endgame. And yeah, man. And so that's something that I think they really should have doubled down on, because that's what the Avengers are fighting for. They're fighting for all life. Why can't we see that?
Why can't we see the life they're fighting for? Yeah.
Instead, we're dicking around in the diner scene. We're dicking around on board the Benatar with Star-Lord and Star-Lord and Thor. We're inside having Chinese food with Thor drunk in the corner. What are we doing? This is the final movie. This is the finale. 22 movies. It's oh man. But yeah, man. And as far as Thor goes, oh my god, Thor is the second biggest problem with Endgame. Basically in the director's commentary, it was just all about wanting to change Thor up yet again, constantly keeping the character fresh. And it's listen, I believe it. It's realistic that somebody who failed to save half of the universe and is essentially responsible for not being able to save trillions of people would wind up like him. But again, this is the grand finale of the Infinity Saga. I've said it 15 times in just this one video. I wanted to see not just the culmination of the movies, but the culmination of the characters. And to have Thor be so physically inept because of his current situation, while yes, it was realistic, it just didn't feel complete.
It doesn't need to be realistic is kind of my idea. Does it need to be realistic? Does it need to be this way? A lot of people, fail and they make themselves better. That's the Thor that I've known since 2011. I feel like that's the Thor that all of us have known.
The message was that it's okay to be the way he... And it is.
Right, it is. But do we need to see that in a superhero movie?
Do we need to be...
Stop putting agendas in superhero movies. We just need to see big, muscular men and women on screen beat the shit out of galactic people. That's why I went to watch Endgame. And that is what we saw at the end, so I wasn't disappointed.
Something else that I thought would have been really cool? I'm genuinely curious. Strange went around uniting and brought in that army. Like, how did they coordinate that over the course of an hour?
They have like at least an hour or two. I mean,
yeah, but it's like,
so
I would have been cool. I mean, obviously you don't want that. You want the surprise. You don't want anything like that. But
yeah, no. If there was a scene of him dusting back into existence, I'd be like, what?
Yeah, no, that would have been bad. But I'm just saying, it would have been cool in the comic. Yeah, man, we've already talked about in the past how, the Thanos problem is already bad enough, but to now have Gamora, who is just brutally killed by her abusive father, and now we have a 24... Like, Tate, it's scary to me that the MCU is now okay with taking any character, killing them, and bringing in a past version and calling that character development.
Yeah, but
calling that a new direction for the story. That's a scary precedent for these movies going forward.
It's a good thing that Guardians of the Galaxy isn't part of Phase 4. At least not yet. Because we get to push that idea into the back of our heads.
But I hope they don't do that again. I hope they never do that again.
Yeah,
I hope Endgame is the only time where they do this, because I don't like that feeling. That Gamora... and sure, it's a very dark, realistic move for Infinity War, but that they're okay with doing that to any character now. But
well, they're not okay with doing it to a Black Widow, which is good.
Yeah, Black Widow will be staying dead.
Well,
I've got to say though, man, like clicking through. I mean, even though it is 2014 Thanos, it was still all visually satisfying.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, despite Thor being heavy set, I mean, him and Iron Man and Cap all going up against Thanos. I mean, visually, it's exactly when this was all first announced. Captain Marvel going up against him and preventing him from destroying half the universe. Exactly what I had imagined it looking like. I mean, that the final battle will always be one of the proudest moments cinema history will ever experience.
Yeah, no, that final battle, dude. I mean, I felt like an oddity. I was the only person cheering in my theater, and I felt like an oddity, dude. But it deserved it, man. I mean, Jesus, that's the coolest fight in the MCU, 100%. I mean, it should be. It should be. 100% should be.
I'm gonna have so much fun making the skits for this movie. I already wrote them.
Guys, and I get to voice something. We don't know what, but I get to voice something.
We'll see, man.
I'm gonna put Black Widow in all the skits.
But yeah, and it's just, man, if Sam wanted to, he could have dragged old Steve back to one of the quantum tunnel devices and just been like, Hulk, push time through him, and then just DH Cap. Can you imagine? And then
geez. Ross said this.
Have Sam be like, "Oh no, I just got back from being murdered by the snap. I'm not ready to become Cap right now. I just got back." He puts on a quantum realm suit, hops on the platform with another quantum realm suit in hand, grabs Cap from 10 minutes ago, and is like, "You're staying here."
It's like, hey, Chris, I don't care that your contracts run out. I don't care that you want to move on to different projects.
Dude, or if Wanda wasn't knocked out for the final portion of the battle, she could have just gotten up and killed Thanos, problem solved, before he ever picked up the gauntlet, the nano gauntlet.
Yeah.
She could have easily killed him if she wasn't knocked out by the blast from the ship.
She was overpowering the Infinity Stones. I mean, Jesus.
Well, yeah. I mean, in Infinity War, not an Endgame. An
No,
Endgame
no,
was
no, no,
just
no,
Thanos.
no,
Yeah.
no. That's what I'm saying, though. I mean, dude, Scarlet Witch, jeez. I mean, that's my favorite overpowered Avenger, Scarlet Witch, 100%. I really hope we get House of M one day. I want
Oh
to.
yeah.
Before we close up, because the conversation's starting to die down, I want to say that I kind of had this thought tank with Ross a little while ago about how the MCU is running out of villains because they keep killing them off every movie or so, right?
Yeah.
So eventually, we're gonna have to start seeing heroes become villains, right? You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself
I don't
become the
want
villain.
Wanda to be the villain. Though.
I want to see House of M in 10 years. I want her to be the end of, this saga, whatever this is. And also, everybody saying Galactus. Galactus is very much an Earth threat, whereas Thanos threatened existence as a whole, right? Galactus is threatening Earth, so I feel like that's a kind of a downgrade. So I think we'll see him in a solo movie. And I think House of M rewriting reality. That's a big step. That's kind of a necessity. Dual gauntlet wearing Doctor Doom rewriting reality. That has to be up there. The chaotic Hulk. The dual gauntlet Hulk. That could be up there. It's a shame that everything revolves around the gauntlets except for House of M, and that's why I want to see House of M so much. But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
man. I mean, like,
right
it will
now,
be exciting if we get to the end of like Phase 5 and they have to face Galactus and Tyrant or whoever.
Galactus, though, I
Like,
mean, Galactus is not a threat compared to Thanos, dude. I'm sorry, he's not. He just eats worlds and then fucks off wherever. That's my one per podcast. No, but you need to have House of M rewriting history, Doctor Doom rewriting history and becoming a tyrannical ruler, something like that. You know what I mean? Because you have to. You can't go from Thanos to Galactus. I'm sorry, you can't.
no, I mean
You absolutely can't.
Thanos is peak MCU. There will never be a greater threat. He controlled the
Well,
universe.
well, there could be if you rewrite reality. So he threatened the galaxy.
Yeah, what if somebody threatens the entire multiverse?
What if
Like,
somebody threatens perception and reality? And who are the two characters that can do that? Doctor Doom and Scarlet Witch. So we have right there. We have the next. Hey Marvel, we have your next 10-year villain, and then we have your 20-year villain and your 30-year villain. There you go. Do with that as you may. It has to be that, dude. I mean, if they release Galactus and a Galactus team up movie in a year, not in a year, in 10 years, I'm sorry, it just won't be enough. You have Doctor Doom. You have to have Doctor Doom. You have to have Wanda in 10 years, something like that, and then you can have the dual gauntlet Savage Hulk, which I think would be a great villain.
I wonder if the Hulk will like ever. I wonder if he'll like start wearing armor on that arm now.
Yeah,
In combat.
I really want to see. I really do want to see in like 5 years or so. In like 5 years or so, I want to see Banner and Hulk break up, and I want to see Savage Hulk, become the main personality.
Yeah, because like if you think about it, the Hulk, he's done his job.
Right.
He is done.
Well, no, Banner has done his job. Banner has done
Well,
his
Banner
job.
and the Hulk, two of them, both of them together, have done the greatest service they ever could to the universe. So it's like I don't really know where you take his story now
You make
that
him
will
a
ever
villain.
amount to anything as great.
You make him
I
a
don't want
villain.
Hulk to be a villain, man.
No. I'm gonna link you to a comic after this.
I feel like
After
that's
this.
cheap. To just be like, anybody who we've already brought full circle want to keep their make him a villain. It's like,
I don't think it's cheap because you've Bruce Banner has come full circle in the Hulk body. So what do? You remember what happened with Ragnarok? Thor was pissed off that Banner was controlling him, so he became a recluse, right? Do that again, but make him even more reclusive. Make Hulk smash even more things.
But that just feels like an extended scene of Endgame. His story is so complete with Endgame because he brought back half of the universe.
I disagree.
Where do you go from a character reviving trillions of people?
No, see, that's Banner's story, dude. It's not Hulk's story.
I mean, technically they did it together because they came to a compromise.
Right, but I don't think Hulk's gonna like that compromise, man. He has to smash. I mean, it's.
It sounds
it's
like they've
part of
been
his
that way for a
character.
long time.
Yeah, but I really do think that they could have an intriguing story where Hulk just hulks out and says, "No more Banner. I'm sick of listening to Banner."
It gets repetitive, man. That was the whole thing. The relationship between Banner and the Hulk was finally sorted out.
Yeah.
And to keep that going, I feel like is excessive.
I'm gonna link you to something after the podcast because I think you'll come around to the idea.
But I'll tell you one thing, man. I hope at some point, because they certainly weren't, right? And I'll say the special features for the Blu-ray were a little disappointing. There was a fantastic Stan Lee tribute in there, similar to that of the one they had with the re-release. But for Infinity War, man, they had like all the major MCU directors at a big round table.
Oh yeah, that's
talking about the MCU. Everybody except for the guy who did the first Avenger, Robert something. God, I feel bad for not knowing his name. He made such an incredible. But yeah, the Endgame special features didn't really have anything of the sort, and the deleted. The best one is one that was already released online, which was the kneeling scene, which definitely should not have been in the movie, and I'm glad they cut that. But also, dude, I just don't know when the next opportunity is going to arise for them to release that Morgan Stark Soul World scene. Because you know what would have been perfect, Tate? Instead of the freaking Star-Lord and Thor scene, would have been Tony Stark facing his future daughter in the Soul World to say goodbye and be at peace with his decision as he dies. The problem is, and there's not much you can do at this point. The writers and the director said they screen tested it and people were confused. And that sucks because it would have been incredible. If people are confused, man, there's not much you can do. It didn't work, and that sucks. Because I hope that we get to see that deleted scene. Because I imagine they put on quite a performance, Catherine Langford and Robert Downey in that moment. And there was also a scene that that was it. That was really the only deleted scene I want to see. Honestly, I can't think of anything else that they mentioned. Yeah. So anyway, I think Tate, unless you've got anything else to add, that's pretty much our revisiting of Endgame and our unpopular opinions and you don't think we hate Endgame by the end of this, because we don't.
I don't hate it. I like Endgame. I think it's a lot of fun.
I would not. Again, I would never be making it. Still love 60% of Endgame.
Yeah, well, that's gonna do it, guys.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. It's been a great 2 hours. Damn, we've been going for 2 hours, Tate. This has been a longer show.
Yeah.
It's been good though.
Yeah, well, I guess that concludes this episode. So thank you guys so much.
We'll be back next Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern for episode 20. Holy crap.
Yeah.
And catch you guys then. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Remember, we are inevitable. Thanks again.